Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Nerd Herders. My name is Rich,
I'm Nick.
and today is our discussion day.
Oh.
So this is one that you brought up to me and thought we should talk about.
Yeah, well, yesterday, if you watched the What We've Been Up To segment, I talked about having seen the BFG.
Yeah.
And one thing that came along with the BFG, the new movie from Steven Spielberg, was the movie bombed.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, $160 million before marketing. It made only $19 million its opening weekend. The movie is a bomb. And this, it was like they were pre-written because the writing was kind of on the wall. It was going to do well. I think we talked about it either together or on the show. I don't remember why weren't they marketing this movie well. The movie wasn't going to do well. So like Sunday, if you don't follow box office grosses, usually Sunday around noon, 12:30, the grosses come out. How much the movie's made that weekend. 5 minutes later, like 4 movie websites that I follow had articles up. Has Steven Spielberg lost his touch? Steven Spielberg doesn't know what audiences want anymore. Blah, blah, blah. And then, like, over the course of the next day, I saw more and more stories. And then, later on, like Monday, Tuesday, started seeing stories like rebutting these people's ideas that he doesn't, and all these things. And so it has become quite the conversation if you follow such things.
Sure.
So my question is, has Steven Spielberg lost touch with audiences, or what's going on here? And I have been thinking about it a lot. He is my favorite director of all time.
Sure.
I did do, and unfortunately there's really no way for anyone to get this. If you wanted them, I still have files. But I did on a previous project in a podcast where we reviewed every single Steven Spielberg movie.
Wow.
So I don't know, hit me up if you want those files. But I do love the guy's work, and I have been thinking a lot about, there's definitely in the last decade been a clear difference in the movies that he has made. For a while, he did go very...
I'm pulling up his IMDb.
Yeah, sure.
While you're doing this.
There's been a whole... All right, so if you go back to, like, 2006 with Munich, the year before they had War of the Worlds, huge hit, made a lot of money. It's an okay movie. It's got some good ideas. Terrible third act.
This is War of the Worlds or Munich?
War of the Worlds.
Okay.
And then the next movie that he made was Munich, and then like he follows that up basically with, you have it there, but
I'm pulling it up right now.
You have basically in a row. Essentially, you have like Munich.
So you had Munich, Indiana Jones.
Sure.
War Horse, Tintin, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, and then BFG.
Right. So for all intents and purposes, you have Indiana Jones, made a lot of money, was not respected almost by anyone. But it made a lot of money in spite of that. But then you have Tintin, another family movie that did not perform well in the United States at all.
I really liked that.
I love that movie. The movie did not do well here. War Horse didn't get the critical acclaim or anything.
No, it was nominated for a bunch of stuff.
It was nominated, but that was one of those movies that was very clearly, when they were forcing 10 movies in, something that just got in and nobody thought.
What do you think of War Horse?
I think it's an atrocious movie.
Really?
I hate that movie.
Wow.
I think it is
the
worst sensibilities of Spielberg.
Then you had
That's
Lincoln.
an argument for another day. Lincoln is Munich and Lincoln, fantastic movies, but very adult. Bridge of Spies, same thing.
I still haven't seen Bridge of Spies.
Very good movie. Very adult. Lincoln and Munich both made over $100 million domestic. Bridge of Spies didn't even crack that. So then
I feel like that just kind of came and went. No one really talked about it.
Yeah, it was just kind of a thing. Tom Hanks wasn't nominated. Mark Rylance won Best Supporting Actor for that movie. But usually when Steven Spielberg were to make something like that, it is a bigger deal. And so then it was even with that not being what it was supposed to be, and then BFG just bombing, it's like Steven Spielberg has this aura about him of being this massive draw for audiences. His name was supposed to get people in the seats. And so you read some of these think pieces, and some people are projecting, like, is it because his name has lost some meaning because he's attached it to a lot of like shitty television in the last like couple of years, or what is it? And honestly, I think if you were to go back, and I'll reiterate some of it with the BFG in particular, I think the movie was mismarketed. Absolutely. In terms of being mismarketed, not marketed at all.
Yeah.
Disney had a $160 million Steven Spielberg adaptation of a Roald Dahl book.
With the writer of E.T.
With the writer of E.T. one of his most popular movies of all time, and they didn't really do anything to promote that.
Nope.
At all.
Like I said, I think it said on the show too, the only time I ever saw them mention any of that was in that Regal or like first look preview that they usually do before the actual previews of the movie. And they kind of mentioned it offhandedly, like, oh yeah, we had so much fun working on E.T. together, and now we're working on this, and like that's it. And but like even like the normal trailers like don't push anything.
So mistake number one by Disney, not promoting the movie,
yeah,
how it should be promoted in a way that would really interest, even at the very least convince you to go see it opening weekend, right? Let alone families. Convince the people who that means something to, that Steven Spielberg and Melissa Matheson worked together to adapt a beloved author's work. Convince us to go to the theater. That's mistake number one. Mistake number two is they clearly dumped this fucking movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They released their $160 million family movie 2 weeks after their other more massive movie, Finding Dory. Like, they directly competed with themselves in a movie that is still sweeping the box office. And a week before The Secret Life of Pets? Like, what are they thinking? Like, they doomed the movie from the start, even putting it in the summer. This movie has no interest being in the summer. It's not an amazing action.
So where do you put it?
You put it in the fall.
You put it
around Thanksgiving. It's a family. It is a true. It's not a. Oh my God! These kids have been running around the house all day in the summer. I need to just take them somewhere so I can just not listen to them.
Yeah, this is that Thanksgiving family movie that
the whole family would enjoy.
It's like, hey guys, dinner's over. It's the weekend. Let's go see. We're all together. Let's go see.
We're all gonna go see the BFG.
Yeah.
That is 100% what this movie is, and it was released at the wrong time of year. And then the other thing is, like I said, in the what we've been up to thing, the movie just is not what modern audiences would expect. And I think it is, in that way, I feel like there was a long time, maybe the first 30 years of his 40-plus career, where he did always seem to have his finger on the pulse of what a modern audience was looking for, or what they didn't even know they wanted yet. And I think that this is an example that maybe he doesn't actually have that anymore, because he is older. He's like 71 now. He doesn't.
Is he that old now?
Yeah.
Jeez.
He does not have anymore a movie in the top 20 highest grossing movies in domestic history. I think Jurassic Park was the last one knocked out recently. So he doesn't have any of those things going for him anymore. And so maybe he doesn't. But the thing about this movie is, it is definitely a movie that 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line will become more appreciated. I guarantee you that. It will be a movie that eventually, now all of the story on it is, it was a failure, it was a box office flop.
Yeah, everyone looks back and goes, oh, that
when
movie
in
was so...
actuality it is decently reviewed, but people will go back to this movie and think differently about it.
I feel like this is a conversation that we have like every few years. Like, oh, is Steven Spielberg still relevant? Is this still... But then like, Lincoln comes out or something comes out, and then it's like, oh, yeah, of course we've always loved you, Steven Spielberg. And then it's like, oh...
Yeah. One of the most interesting pieces that I read was over on Collider.
Okay.
And the whole thesis of the write-up was, we take Steven Spielberg for granted. And it was a really interesting premise. It was basically saying, if Alfred Hitchcock or Stanley Kubrick were still alive, what cinephile would not be there opening weekend to see one of their movies?
Yeah.
But how many of us did not go see Steven Spielberg's new movie this weekend? And he's like, why is that? We take him for granted.
Yeah.
And one day he's going to be gone, and we're going to be like, I can't believe he made a movie and I didn't go see it in theaters. I mean,
it's true. That'd be like if we were around before, pre and post death of either of those two directors, and we're like, yeah, I'm not gonna go see whatever.
Just let that one slide.
And you're like, I could have seen a Hitchcock movie opening, weekend.
Right, and I mean, for me personally, there are his 10 best movies. I can't imagine living without. 10 movies, maybe more. There's so many great movies that he's made.
Well, I saw Enzian play Jaws
this weekend.
Right? still, I mean, it's one of those movies that like I don't revisit often, but when I do, I'm always reminded of like how great that movie is
and how great he elevates everything. The way that he moves the camera in ways that are meaningful to the action, meaningful to the story. The way that he directs actors, the way that he draws genuine awe from. I mean, one of the most amazing things that I'll always say about Spielberg is you watch so many Hollywood movies and you see how people just don't seem to fucking care what they're seeing happening in these amazing circumstances, and then you see Jurassic Park and you see the genuine awe on the faces of these people when they see dinosaurs. That's just the separation. He understands that stuff. And so I'm not like calling you out or anything, but the fact that you didn't see Bridge of Spies, you haven't seen BFG, like that's what I'm saying. Like, we take him for granted that these movies are just going to keep coming. And the fact of the matter is his next couple of projects do sound very much like they should be more financially successful movies, and all of this BFG talk is going to be moot with his next movie being
And then they'll
Ready
look
Player
back
One.
and they'll be like, oh yeah, that BFG movie he did that everybody loved.
It was really good. But
it's underappreciated and everybody actually loved it.
Yeah, of course that's going to happen. But Ready Player One is his next movie. Then he's following that up, presumably his next movie after that, or the one after that, is going to be the next Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones 5. That's confirmed. It's happening. He's talked about it in the press of this.
I'm excited.
That'll be a huge hit, regardless of quality. Like Crystal Skull, hopefully it's better than that. But
did you see the Ready Player One reports of him cutting most of his stuff out of it? So what was... Stuff. So that's just, he just doesn't want it in there? Did he? I didn't really read too much into it.
He felt like that would... He said that, I think his comments were, it works incredibly well in the book, but if he were to be doing it for his own stuff, then it wouldn't come across the right way. It would come across as self-referential or distracting because he's the filmmaker behind it. And they're not going to cut out all... For those who don't know what Ready Player One is, basically it takes place in a virtual reality game where you can create anything, and the main character is obsessed with like the movies of the 80s. So a lot of Spielberg stuff, as you would imagine, is referenced in it. He's going to cut most of that out, which is, whatever. That's
now, having read the book, do you think that will be an issue? I don't know too much about it.
No, I mean, the cool thing is sort of like Wreck-It Ralph, where you have all these different things in one movie. As long as there's a lot of stuff, like in Ready Player One, like he has the DeLorean, he has the Millennium Falcon built that he flies around in, he has Vipers from Battlestar Galactica and the Firefly ship, and
That's
like
cool.
all these things. And like if none of that were in it, then it would be slightly disappointing.
Sure.
But the story's still good, and it has a lot of heart, and you can see how Spielberg will do well by that story. But it's just, I think that the reports of his demise are greatly exaggerated when he has that huge movie coming down the line. Yeah. And then Indiana Jones, which is a surefire hit. Like, and he just made Bridge of Spies, which again was a very solid movie, and Lincoln is fantastic. Yeah. It is a great movie, and it was just a couple of years ago with an amazing.
So I'm saying, like, every few years there's like something that isn't a box office hit, and everyone goes, is he still relevant? Is he? It's like, forget the last like couple movies that were Oscar nominated and Oscar winning, but is he still relevant?
It's crazy.
And then they'll forget about it by next year.
And I would love to know the history, the reasoning that Disney had in not marketing this movie.
Yeah, that was...
Because all of his discussion about this, even in the press leading up to BFG, was how excited he was to finally be making a movie for Disney. And how he's always wanted to. It's the one studio he had never worked for.
It's like, how are you not marketing this as the creators of E.T. are working with Disney for the first time?
They dropped the ball.
Like, how is that not... That should be it. And everyone goes, I love E.T., I love Disney. Well, here, I gotta go see this.
Hardcore. It'll be interesting to see what you think of the movie when you do see it.
I'm gonna try to see it maybe this week. Or weekend. Hopefully by the next time we talk, I'll have seen it.
Very cool. So, again, my summary is he hasn't lost his touch. He just made a movie that people didn't really want to see yet. I think foreign box office for this will be much larger than in the U.S., and one day we'll appreciate it because it is a pretty good movie.
Cool. What did you think of the BFG? Have you seen it? Are you planning on seeing it? Let us know in the comments below or tweet at us.
I'm at Stonks.
He's at Stonks. I'm at Rich Belson. The channel's on Twitter at OABeer_official. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/overbeer. We're on Instagram, over_A_beer. Where for the entire month of July, Nick is posting his Nick's picks of his top 30 superhero movies.
They're all in here. I've already got a number one.
Oh, wow.
You won't find that out until the end of the month.
So stick around. Check us out on Instagram again, over_A_beer for those. And youtube.com/overbeer, where every Tuesday we post a full-length beer review. And then at soundcloud.com/overbeer every Friday, we post our Overbeer podcast, which is a more off-topic conversational podcast between Nick and I and sometimes Dana. That's also on iTunes as well. But that will wrap things up for today. So until next time, drink up.
Butter me up.